gospel reading this morning comes from the Gospel according to Matthew, chapter 11, verses 2 through 11. When John heard in prison what the Messiah was doing, he sent word by his disciples and said to him, "Are you the one who is to come, or are we to wait for another?" Jesus answered them, "Go and tell John what you hear and see. The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the poor have good news brought to them. And blessed is anyone who takes no offense at me." As they went away, Jesus began to speak to the crowds about John. "What did you go out into the wilderness to look at? A reed shaken by the wind? What then did you go out to see? Someone dressed in soft robes? Look, those who wear soft robes are in royal palaces. What then did you go out to see? A prophet? Yes, I tell you, and more than a prophet. This is the one about whom it is written, 'See, I am sending my messenger ahead of you, who will prepare your way before you.' Truly I tell you, among those born of women, no one has arisen greater than John the Baptist. Yet the least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Joy. Joy sometimes becomes the moment when all the Christmas shopping is done. I think my wife has become quite joyful in the last couple of days. I, on the other hand, I don't know what to do. Okay, most everything's done, but let's face it, after years of marriage, the joy is still there. But here's the thing. Every day is a great gift for us. And every year I find it harder and harder to find that special, meaningful gift to give my wife. She'll tell you that I have always given her very thoughtful gifts. In fact, we are a couple that says, you know what, let's not spend ridiculous amounts of money on each other on things that we will only wear once a year. Let's not get that stuff that is extravagant. No, instead, this first year of marriage, you know what we really need? We need a vacuum. This second year of marriage, you know what we really need? A new mixer. This third year of marriage, you know what we need? We need moving expenses. This fourth year, let's face it, we have two extremely hairy cats. We need a new vacuum. This fifth year of marriage, you know what? Maybe this year, what we need is something fun and exciting. You know what? We need a new knife set. So let's face it. If you looked at my gifts from the outside, you would probably look and say, this man doesn't get it. But if you looked from the inside and asked my wife, what did you really want for all these gifts? She would tell you, well, one year I wanted a vacuum. A few years later, we needed a new vacuum. We have been practical. And this year, yeah, there's plenty of things that were practical around the house. Honestly, I'd love to give my wife great news of a call. And maybe it will happen. Maybe not in time for Christmas, but it will happen. But I still don't know what to give. Now, maybe part of it is this. We're not rich people. We aren't able to give hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're not able to give thousands of dollars at Christmas. But we try hard to give joyfully. And so maybe part of it is for me, I need at least twice a week to go to the grocery store. Not because I necessarily need stuff in the grocery store, but maybe because when I went the first time, I intentionally forgot something, so I'd have to go back the second time. You see, sometimes during the year, change piles up in my car. Sometimes, dollar bills from breaking that 5, that 10, that 20 sit in my wallet. What do you do with those? You put them in the piggy bank. Sure. You can put them in the real bank. Sure. But something has always kept me wanting to hold that money for Advent. Because I have a really hard time walking past someone standing in the cold, dedicating themselves to ringing a bell for an hour, for 2 hours, for 4 hours. Now, some are volunteers and some are getting paid. Not well, but they're getting paid. And I simply have a hard time walking past that red kettle and saying, I don't have anything to give. And understand this, in a modern society, many of us have gone away from even carrying cash. Most people under 25 probably don't even know what a checkbook is or how you would actually use one. Let's be honest. My child has cash. We give him some small amounts of cash. But what he normally sees is us using our bank card. Not a credit card, a bank card. And it's really hard to put a bank card into the kettle and have it mean anything. So I always try to carry some cash. Because I want to joyfully give. We are preparing in the season of Advent for the joy of new birth. A new birth that comes in the form of a baby in the manger. And I love this because, honestly, when you think about it, when a child is born to parents, more often than not, the parents love that child unconditionally. Not because it's necessarily the right thing to do, but because that is the very image of God in us. God loves us unconditionally. And that's a really good thing, because if there were conditions, I'd be in big trouble. If there were conditions, Paul admits to us that he would be in great trouble. It says, God came to save sinners, and I am the greatest of these. I'm no Paul as far as my adventures in sinning, but I'm no Mother Teresa either. Let's be honest about it. I'm not here because I'm perfect. I'm here because God called me unconditionally. That I would be the image of one who is unconditionally loved despite my failings. And that's what new birth is. It is this season of joy in which something new comes. Something that comes and describes to us what it means to love without condition. We as Christians struggle with this because we love to receive that unconditional love. And yet, we make conditions about it. But it's an unconditional love from God. And it's a love that we are called to share. And you see, today's scripture, Isaiah proclaims the time when the blind will see, The mute will speak, the deaf will hear, the lame will leap. And as John sits in prison, his disciples are sent to Christ and say, "Are you the one? The one we have been waiting for, the one that John proclaimed." And Jesus says, "Go and tell him." Jesus could have easily said, "Yes, I am." That's not his answer, is it? His answer is, "Go and tell him what you see and hear, that the blind receive their sight, that the mute speak, that the deaf hear, that the lame get up, that the lepers are cleansed." In other words, go and tell him that God's unconditional love is present. We have to understand something. Because in Israel, the religious leaders were saying, lepers are unclean because they offended God. They're separate from us. Keep them away. They are unclean, not worthy to be God, to be called God's people. Now, they can go and do a lot of rituals, and maybe God will re-bless them and they will become clean, and they can join us again. Oh, you're blind? I'm so sorry to hear that. Why did your parents sin? Oh, you can't hear me. That's too bad. Why did your parents sin? You can't speak? Well, you can't even tell me why your parents sinned, so you can't walk. What did you do that was so sinful? I tell you what, you all can come back once you find the conditions that you need to get right with God. You find those conditions that you need to fix and you can come back. That wasn't working. God said, "I love my children. I love my creation." It's not working. These conditions, they're not bringing people to me, they're separating people from each other. They need to see unconditional love in new birth. I don't think I could honestly have been a pastor before my child was born. I don't think I could be a good pastor without understanding what it means to unconditionally love a child, to unconditionally love another person. Because if I did not unconditionally love my child, well, let's just say I start running against Paul for the foremost of sinners. And that's what this season of Advent is. A chance to see and think and feel about what it means to unconditionally love, to have a joy of a mother of a newborn child, to have the joy of a father of a newborn child, to have the joy of grandparents, of great-grandparents, aunts and uncles and cousins. Because a newborn child, a newborn child brings us a lot of sleepless nights. So saying that a child brings us peace is a little bit of a stretch, right? Let's face it. No, a child does bring us peace. A newborn child brings us hope, the hope of a future for that child. A child brings us joy when the child first laughs at us, when the child first starts to walk. In our case, when the child starts to walk and then immediately runs. When a child turns and finally understands what it means to say, I love you. When a child gets what it means to be called a child. This is joy. It should make your heart burn with unconditional love. So I've been sad to see reports of people being upset with the Salvation Army because of some of their political agenda. I've been upset that people have been frustrated with other organizations and their political agendas. And these go both ways. And you see, Jesus didn't come and say, the blind receive sight so long as they fit my conditions. Jesus didn't say, the lepers are healed because they've met my conditions. No. The new realm has come. Joy is here. People receive it unconditionally. Every Sunday, you have heard me say, return no person evil for evil. So how can I conditionally give money if I'm upset about someone conditionally providing services? How does that fix the problem? How do you rebuke someone who has put conditions on their giving? You have the insert, the Christmas joy offering. Joyfully give. But not just in Advent. In every day and in everything you do. Hear the good news. The new kingdom has come. Joy is upon us. It's an unconditional love, and we are called to be unconditional with ours as well. This doesn't mean give up what you believe in. It means just because someone believes differently than you, or someone acts differently than you, is not a reason to withhold the mission of God. The sword cuts both ways. But it cuts not to hurt us, it cuts to make us a joyful people. The joy of new birth. May you go back to the day that your child was born, that your nephew or niece was born, that your grandchildren were born. And may that be the joy that you carry in your heart every single day and in every single relationship that you have. Thanks be to God for an unconditional love